So many runners think that frustration is a bad thing, that feeling frustrated means that they're not going to achieve their goals. But what if instead we just start to see frustration as part of the process? Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on episode number 262 of the Real Life Runners podcast.
So today we're talking all about frustration. Like, we know this is something that all of us experience it. I experienced it multiple times today.
Yeah.
Just today.
Yeah.
And so what we
inside and outside of running.
Yeah, totally. So what we want to do here is give you 3 steps to start this process so that frustration is something that you can use instead of just constantly fight against or like push down and pretend like it doesn't exist, because it exists and we all deal with it.
Let's talk about this 3-step process. And this is something that you guys can use when it comes up in your running. This is something that you can use when it comes up in any area of your life, because like you guys know, we think that running is essentially just that metaphor for life. And it's one of the tools and the vehicles that we can use to evolve into the next version of ourselves. So you guys can use this process to process any frustration and really any emotion, if we're going to just completely generalize it. But let's just start with frustration. Step 1, when you're feeling frustrated, the first step that you need to do is just notice it, right? You need to notice that you're feeling frustrated. And so many people aren't even really aware of what frustration actually feels. Sometimes we just kind of start to feel a negative emotion, and so we just try to ignore it and push it down. And unfortunately, when that happens, that leads to a lot of times it just building up inside of us and then affecting other areas of our lives, because frustration and some of these other negative emotions, it's one of those things that doesn't usually just go away if we don't actually process it. It just kind of like we shove it down and then it builds back up, and then we shove it down and it builds back up. And every time it builds back up, it gets a little bit stronger and a little bit more powerful.
I mean, it is a great concept of how to like build a running base, of just kind of keep packing in the miles and then let it build up a little more and pack. It does not work for ignoring your feelings and shoving them down. For me, I feel just agitated. Like I can't focus on anything. I can't form a clear thought. That's my personal sensation, but that's not how other people feel it. You got to figure out how frustration hits you particularly, and that's just really paying attention to how these feelings then physically manifest inside of your body.
It goes with like aches and pains in our body, right? A lot of times we tend to try to just ignore this, especially as runners, or like you kind of feel like that thing in your calf, kind of like, hello, I'm here. And you're like, oh, no, you're not really there,
No,
right?
you're
We
not.
just kind of try to ignore that. We're just going to keep running, right? Like, and you wake up the next morning and it's still there and you're like, yeah, I'm sure it'll feel better when I'm like a mile or 2 into my run, and you go out on your run again, right? And it's one of those things that if you keep trying to ignore it and you don't actually notice it, it's going to keep building and it's going to keep getting worse. Same thing with frustration. And then that thing will bubble up and you will not be able
like
to
a volcano. No one wants a calf volcano.
Nobody wants a calf volcano. Said no one ever. Step 2 is to actually accept it, right? We can accept that frustration is there, because so many people think that frustration is something bad and it's something that we need to fix. And what we are here to help you understand is that frustration is something that all of us experience in running. No matter how long you've been doing it, running is a way to grow. And guess what? Anytime we grow, frustration comes along for the ride. When we fight something, like if we try to pretend that like frustration's not there and we try not to accept it, we actually give power to that thing that we're fighting against.
Because you can be experiencing frustration, but that doesn't have to be the only thing that you've got.
Yeah.
Like you pointed out a couple of examples. I'd like to act from gratitude or love. Those didn't disappear just because frustration showed up. Let's move on to step 3 here.
Yeah, welcome it. So step 1, notice it. Step 2, accept it. And step 3, get to the point where you can actually start welcoming frustration, right? Because so many of us want to just get rid of it. But unfortunately, it always comes back. So what if we just decided that frustration is part of the growth and learning process, and that it just naturally comes along with learning new things? Frustration, you're allowed to be there. I'm going to keep going because I'm committed to doing everything I can to try to achieve that goal. It's not that like frustration just means like, let's just keep going. Like there are definitely some times where it is important to kind of take that step back and address what is actually causing that frustration. And then there are other times that you just kind of have to understand that frustration is going to be a part of the process.
Yep.
And that you just have to keep going.
You got it.
All right, cool. So that's what we have for you guys today. We hope that was really helpful because we know that frustration is one of those emotions that is universal in running and pretty much every other area of our lives. So if you guys thought that this was helpful, we would love for you to share this with a friend and get this information in more people's ears to help more runners feel less frustrated and make better progress toward their goals. And that's really what we want to do, is really help people to feel more empowered in their running journey and in the rest of their lives, especially if you're actually watching us on YouTube, because you're actually watching us on YouTube right now. So if you're listening to this in a podcast player, yes, we do put these episodes on YouTube. So
that's probably a lot of people listening right now. They're going like, wait, there's a YouTube for this?
Yeah, at Real Life Runners on Instagram. And like we said earlier in the episode, you can find us at Real Life Runners on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the good things. So come say hi. We love connecting with our listeners. And we hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. So as always, thank you for spending this time with us and for choosing to listen to the Real Life Runners podcast. This has been the Real Life Runners podcast, episode number 262. Now get out there and run your life.